All right, kia ora everyone. It's Nathan Rose here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. Today I'm going to take you through how to generate random names in Dataverse using Power Effects. Now, this is a really useful thing to know how to do. Whenever you're setting up a new environment, you need to seed it with test data or prep for a demo or something like that. It can be super helpful to quickly generate random names. So let me take you through how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll crack into it. So one of the one of the challenges that we have when trying to generate random names using Power Effects is that there's no function to generate random text or letters or anything like that. We can do it with numbers. There's a rand function that will generate random numbers between two numbers that we specify, but there's no way as of now to do that with text. So what I did was I cheated a little bit. So I a created two tables in Dataverse, one called first names and one called last names. And what I did was I seeded this with data from this website called forbears.io, where they have the most common surnames and forenames in the world. So I basically took the top 500 rows of first names and surnames and seeded them into my Dataverse tables. Cool. All right. So now how do I go about randomly combining these together so that I can get some actual contact data in the system? Well, let's to do that, let's flick over to the CLI, the command line interface, and I'll show you how this works. So let me go ahead and just connect. So I'm going to pack, Power Effects, REPL. This is going to go ahead and connect to my environment. Okay, cool. We are connected. So we can now we can query we can query tables from in Dataverse. So like, for example, if I said first NDR underscore first name, it's going to give me the first row that it finds. And that's all well and good, but what if I want to do this randomly? I don't want, if we try this again, say first NDR underscore first name, again, it comes back with Maria. So that's the first row that it's finding. But I want to randomize my names. I don't want everyone in the system to be called Maria. So how do I do this? Well, there is a really cool Power Effects function called Shuffle. And what Shuffle does is it basically randomizes the data coming back in a table. So if I say Shuffle and I put in NDR underscore first name, it's going to give me a random order of people in this table. Now let's do it one more time. And you can see again, it's given us a totally random order of people in this table. So now if we combine this with first, so if I say first and then shuffle and NDR underscore first name, it's going to give me a random first name. Try this one more time. So that's pretty cool, but hang on a second because we're getting a row and what we actually want is just the string field. So how do we get that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my formula, but at the end of it, I'm just going to put in a dot and I'm going to put in the column. So NDR underscore name. That's all I want. So I'm going to hit enter and look at that. It gives us just the name. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's how we get a random first name. It works exactly the same way for a surname. So how do we go about getting this put into a name, a first and a last name? All right, in order to do this, I'm going to use an interpolated string. Now, if you haven't worked with these before, these are really cool. They basically do what a concatenate does, but it allows you to write much less code. So instead of having to add a concatenate into your expression, you simply start with a dollar sign and a double quote, and that denotes I'm starting an interpolated string. And then you end it with a double quote like that. And within this, I can put in curly brackets to then say, do these PowerFX expressions and stick it into the string. So we're going to say first shuffle ndr underscore first name dot ndr underscore name and curly brackets. That's going to give us the first part. Going to put in a space. Now we don't have to put in double quotes and space like you would in a concatenate, because again, we're working within this interpolated string. So the assumption is that this is that outside of these curly brackets, this is part of the string. So that's going to be all we have to do is put a space, put in our next curly bracket, and then we simply put in first shuffle ndr underscore last name. That's going to get us a random surname dot ndr underscore name. Again, we put in a curly bracket that tells the interpolated string that we are done with that part of the expression. And then we simply put in another double quote to end the interpolated string. All right, so we've got everything we need to get a random name. Let's do that. And very cool, it's done it. Let's copy paste this one more time. Hang on, I missed something. Missed the double quotes at the end. Try this again. And we got a random name. Okay, very cool. But how do we get this into Dataverse? Because we still have an empty contact table. How do we go ahead and do that? All right, well, come back here to VS Code. And what we're going to do is we are going to use this expression or bits of this expression within a collect statement. So we're going to write collect. Collect is what we use to create rows using PowerFX, whether you're using the command line interface or low-code plugins. If you were working in Canvas apps, you can use patch combined with defaults, but that's not supported in the CLI and in low-code plugins. So we use collect instead. So we're going to say collect. We're going to say contacts because that's the table we're creating it in. And then we're simply going to let it know the update that we want to pass. So we put in a curly bracket and we put in first name. And we're going to say, again, we're going to put in this. Let's just copy and paste that. Put a comma, last name. Let's copy and paste this. And we'll put in a curly bracket and a bracket to denote the end of our collect statement. And let's hit enter to go ahead and create this row in Dataverse. So it's thinking and it's created a row for us. So let's come over here to Dataverse, do a quick refresh, and we've got a row in Dataverse. Very cool. But let's say we want to set some more fields. We don't just want the first and last name. Let's say we also need an email address, and we need that email address to be derived from the name. Let's say we want first name dot last name at test.com. So let's go ahead and give that a try. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to put in my collect statement. Paste this in. All right, so I'm going to use collect and I'm going to say first name again, same way as the first formula. And then for email address, I'm going to use an interpolated string. And again, I'm going to use first and shuffle for first name and last name at test.com. So that's my interpolated string and the end of my collect statement. Okay, let's go ahead and hit enter and see how we get on. Okay, so it's created a record for us. Let's come back to Dataverse. Hang on a second, something's gone wrong. We got a random name, but we also got a random name in the email. So what's going on is each time you run this first shuffle, it's going to give you the first random first name or last name that it finds. So the way we actually need to structure this is we need to create an expression that runs this collect statement, but then does an update based on the context of this collect statement that we've written. Now, the best way to do that is to use with. Now, if you haven't used with, it is a brilliant expression because it basically allows us to say, do this thing, and then with the context of this thing you've done, go and do another thing. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say with, and the first thing we need to do is effectively we're declaring a variable. So we put a curly bracket. Let's call this var c, and that's going to be our collect statement. So we're going to come here. Let's just copy paste this to save a little bit of time. All right, so that's var c. We're going to create the contact with the first and the last name. Cool. All right. So now we put a curly bracket to let the expression know that that's the effectively the variable var_c that we've created. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put in a comma and we're going to move on to the main formula operation that can reference this record that we're creating here. So we're going to put in a patch statement. We're going to say patch, and again we're going to patch contacts, and we need to specify a row. So in this case it's going to be var_c. That's our row that we've created. Hang on, I need a capital letter, var_c. And then I need to specify the update that I'm going to make. So I'm going to update email address 1. And again, let's use an interpolated string to do that. So we're going to put in our string interpolation, and we're going to say var, oops, var_c dot first name dot var_c dot last name at test.com. Again, we'll put in double quotes to let it know that we're done with the string interpolation. We're going to put in a curly bracket to let the patch statement know that's the end of our update. We'll put in a bracket to close off the patch statement and one to close off the with statement. All right, we're ready to go. Let's hit enter. And sometimes it takes a minute or two here. Okay, we have created a contact. So let's come over here, Sylvia Nunez. Let's hit refresh. And look at that. We have created a contact and we managed to create the email with the first and last name from the contact that we've created. So very cool. We were able to create a random contact and create an email with the same name. So that's how you would do that. You'd use the with expression to reference the contact that you've created. All right, let's kick it up one more notch. So what we're going to do is, let's say we want to seed an entire contact table. So we've got a bunch of contacts that we want to create, and let's say we're doing this as part of an environment creation or something along those lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to exit from this, and I'm going to switch over to Pack Power Effects Run. There is a bit of a character limitation. When you get to some more lengthy formulas, they tend to truncate if you're in Pack Power Effects REPL. So what I'd advise you to do is use Pack Power Effects Run. The advantage is I get to write my expressions here in VS Code, so I get all of the nice syntax checking and all of that. Then I simply save it and run Pack Power Effects Run. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's Pack Power Effects Run. It's going to go ahead and connect. Okay, so let's go through this expression. So we're basically going to do the same exact thing that we did previously. We're going to use a with expression to create our contact in the first bit of part of it, and then we're going to update that contact with an email address derived from the first and last name. But we want to do this 100 times. So how do we do that? So at the start of our expression, we're going to use ForAll, and this is if you're used to working in, say, Power Automate, this is basically looping. when you get an apply to each loop, this is basically what you're doing with ForAll and PowerFX. Next we need to stipulate that we want 100 rows. Now there is a great expression called sequence, and this allows us to say, do this 100 times. So we're going to say ForAll, for each 100 times, go through, create the contact, and then set the email address. So let me go ahead and I'm going to grab my command here and paste this in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say pack PowerFX run. It's going to specify this file here. Make sure there's nothing else in there. Awesome. And then echo is basically going to print the results back to the command line here so that we can see this is done. So we are ready to go. Let's hit enter and watch this thing go. So it's going to go ahead, it's going to connect. And it's going to start creating rows. So we've created 3 rows already, so we should have 103 when this is done. Oh, look at that, we're done. So if we come back here to VS Code, it's given us an output here. It's let us know that it's done. And we have gone and created 100 random contacts in Dataverse with random names and an email address based on that name with a PowerFX expression. So hope this was helpful. If you need to add random data into your Dataverse environments, this is a great way to do it with PowerFX. One thing that I did consider was being able to use an API to talk to, say, APIs like this 4pairs.io. Unfortunately, I don't think the PowerFX CLI supports connections at the moment. I haven't been able to get them to work, but that is still something I'm looking at. One last thing before I go, I was hoping to show you this in low-code plugins. I had it all set up and ready to go. Unfortunately, it looks like we've got some issues in low-code plugins. I haven't been able to create any lately. So I know that they're working on this. There's some bugs that they're working out and getting ready to roll out some fixes to this, but so it's not working in low-code plugins in the moment, but it would work exactly the same way as it does in the PowerFX CLI. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Go do something awesome on the Power Platform today, and I will talk to you soon.